is the Doomsday Podcast. Ed at field level in the just after doing some post game. Oh, I love to be able to see. Oh, there he is on the Zoom. Is I've made my way across town to the studio. Ed at AT&T Stadium after this one, and Ed, you are just as we tape this, just an hour or so after the game. You've spent time with Jerry Jones. And in fact, I saw it on Twitter. You had a nice little photo. You took a break from recording and put a nice photo up on Twitter. Ed, I would imagine this was a jubilant Jerry Jones, and it continues to be a Jerry Jones who is very impressed / surprised with how this quarterback is performing. But I would say he had to be very pleased after this one.
Yeah, Cooper Rush is the first quarterback in Cowboys franchise history, and they've had two quarterbacks go to the Hall of Fame and two quarterbacks win Super Bowls, and one of the great undrafted quarterbacks in NFL history in Tony Romo, and yet Cooper Rush is the first Cowboys quarterback to win the first four starts of his NFL career, and it's not a common occurrence really among any quarterback group in the entire league. And one of the things that Jerry said after the game was that he wasn't sure that when Dak got injured week one and was looking at a multi-game absence, Jerry, the general manager who put this roster together with the help of Stephen Jones and Will McClay and Mike McCarthy, he wasn't sure that this would happen. He wasn't sure this was going to be the outcome. He had some uncertainty about whether they had put the roster together correctly at the most important position in the game, the quarterback spot. But obviously, those concerns have been dispelled by this. And now, the question is, does Cooper Rush get a chance to get to 5-0 next week when they play the Rams? Or does Dak come back for that game? Or does Dak come back the following week against the first place Eagles? Two big road games coming up for the Cowboys, and games I think that'll really give us a better sense of what they're capable of, this year. As for whether Dak would return this week, Jerry said there's no way of knowing at this point. I asked him the criteria that Dak would have to meet to resume as a starter, and he said he would have to be able to properly grip the football. He would be able to have to control the ball, throw it accurately, and that any pain he's still having would not be able to interfere with his ability to function in those capacities that he mentioned. So it'll be interesting to see if he's cleared to practice this week. I think that's possible. Jerry made it sound like that was kind of the plan. And the other interesting thing, and I think we're going to play the whole thing so people will hear all the details and hear Jerry say it himself. But I asked him if they had seen the X-ray to demonstrate that Dak's thumb has healed properly. And Jerry said because of the surgery that he had, that's not necessary, which I found somewhat surprising.
Yeah, and we always know Jerry has great insight on all these medical things. Ed, I thought about you when I was watching some of the Fox broadcasts today, because you love a good vest over some broken ribs or a sling or whatever, and there were quite a few. Aaron Andrews and the crew had all sorts of close-ups of the thumb. And I know you love to see kind of what an injury, like what padding they're using.
He wasn't wearing anything when I saw him this morning. He didn't throw any pat and go. He hasn't thrown any routes yet. So I think it's a little ambitious to expect that he's going to all of a sudden be able to play against a team as good as the Rams and play to the level the Cowboys are going to need to perform at offensively to win a game like that.
When's the Cowboys bye, Ed? I think the Cowboys are leaning toward just telling Dak, just take the bye. Go through the bye. You'll be fine.
We'll see you at Thanksgiving.
That Thanksgiving Day game will be a fine measure. All right, Ed, lots to discuss. And if you hear some music in the background, Ed is still at the stadium, and he's just gone straight from on camera with ESPN to jumping right into the Doomsday Podcast. That's the way we like it out here at Frito Nation Productions in Far North Dallas. Frito, please play the music. All right, and we will have, of course, stretch plays a little later in the program. And Ed, just to start off, I'm just so pleased that we have Marable Homes with us, and what a great sponsor. And it turns out Ed got some feedback this week that a high-ranking member of the Cowboys organization was talking to one of his friends, and he said, "Hey, what are you hearing about this Marable Holmes that's on the Doomsday Podcast?" And I thought that was kind of neat that the Cowboys, they're noticing things we're doing. And again, one of the things I love about Blake Marable, Amy, his wife, and the Marable family is, Ed, like it's like they have a roster, much like the Cowboys, and who's ever handling the plaster or the drywall, all the housing, they're like praying for these people, the electricians. Ed, this is your kind of deal. I mean, it's not just like, well, we don't even know who we're sending out to your house. They're like praying for all these folks. And that's one of the reasons they are having so much success, as well as, of course, being partnered with us. I don't know if that's.
I'm sure they had some, doubts after they cut you the sponsorship check. What happens the very first game? Dak Prescott gone for an unknown length of time. So as relieved as Jerry Jones was that Cooper Rush has proven capable of delivering winning football on a weekly basis, I think our good friends at Marable Homes probably felt much the same sense of relief.
That's right. They can keep building homes with these wins. With each win, it accounts for another home. But beautiful luxury homes dotting really all the streets of Lake Highlands and surrounding areas. Okay, Ed, as we continue on here, though, Cowboys get this win 25-10. We opened with talking a little bit about Cooper Rush. His story is amazing, and he just continues to get it done. And there were some really bad-looking drives, especially when they were kind of in their own end zone. And then occasionally, Ed, what he'll do is just rip a throw. It's just like, dang. I mean, this dude, like he throws a nice deep ball. I want to specifically talk about one touchdown to CeeDee Lamb. And I made the comment via Twitter, Ed. I mean, I would hope you're hanging on each of my tweets. I kind of doubt that, though. But my thought was...
What's your handle again?
At Matt Mosley. It's Mosley. I thought that was like the point I made is that was an Amari-like route because he sold his body language kind of, I'm going to run it out. And then when he cut that thing inside on that post, I mean, it was like they didn't have a shot. They didn't have a chance. And then Cooper just fires it. So to me, Ed, this isn't like an offense that's going to blow anybody away, but it's an opportunistic offense. They're going to capitalize when they get in position, especially against a team that obviously doesn't have much going for it, other than a really nice, pretty good run defense. But the Cowboys took full advantage. Ed, Gallup and CD. I think that was a sight for sore eyes for Cowboys fans to see those two back together again.
Well, I think it's interesting that if you look at the offensive side of the ball and the way they're trending, they've now scored more points each week of the season. And on defense, they've allowed fewer points each week so far this season. And I think you got to feel pretty good about that if you're Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn. I did think it was interesting that this was the first game, that they did have both of their projected starting receivers since trading Amari Cooper. And, I did the post-game interview with Michael Gallup, and he said he went through a full range of emotions in making his first appearance on a football field in 8 months since he had the ACL surgery. And, he suffered the injury catching a touchdown pass in the same end zone where in a scramble situation, he caught a touchdown pass from Cooper Rush. And this was his first game he's played with Cooper Rush. Didn't play. He missed the game last year when Cooper Rush started at Minnesota. And then obviously he was unavailable to this point this season. So the Cowboys finally have their full complement of wide receivers, although Noah Brown left the game with some kind of a neck injury. So we'll have to monitor that. But, I think it was pretty remarkable that both of his touchdown passes today, Cooper Rush, I'm talking about, came under duress. And he began the day completing 59% of his passes when pressured. And, say what you will about Washington, and you kind of alluded to it, but they do have a good defensive front. Like they have 3 first-round picks in their starting defensive line. But Rush has completed 59% of his passes when pressured. That's the fourth best number in the NFL. And, I mentioned a couple times reporting on the team this week and including this morning that, what they have done from a coaching standpoint is have really created, a good run balance ratio. Mike McCarthy's never been known for that. But the play action passing game has really been critical to the success that they've had with Cooper Rush. Rush, in terms of quarterback rating in play action situations, only Josh Allen has a better quarterback rating than does Cooper Rush. And in terms of getting rid of the ball, his average is 2.46 seconds. Only Tom Brady is faster getting rid of the ball than Cooper Rush. So he's been decisive. He knows what he's seeing. He knows where to go with the ball. And most importantly of all, he was asked about this today after the game about how he's had this success starting 4-0. And he said, it's the defense, plain and simple.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't put them in bad situations. He doesn't give up sacks. He doesn't turn the ball over, although he turned it over twice today, both interceptions negated by penalties, fortunately for him. But he just doesn't put the defense in a bad situation on a short field, doesn't, give up points on offense. And so they're pretty hard to beat when they play this way. I think the interesting thing will be how much can they replicate this when Dak Prescott is playing? Because I talked to Ron Rivera, the Washington head coach, and, Ron Rivera knows great unconventional defenses. He played on maybe the most intimidating defense in NFL history with the 85 Chicago Bears, who won a Super Bowl. And he talked about how, they're so capable of using so many different players to create pressure. And then from an offensive point of view, the thing you said about Dak Prescott versus Cooper Rush is I've told our guys the ball is coming out right now because he's not an athletic guy. He's not going to generally run around and make plays. And Dak is doing that all the time. So maybe there's a greater emphasis of when Dak does come back, hey, let's get the ball out on time. Let's not extend plays when we don't have to. Let's just try to make the play that we call and see how that works.
Or could they just say, be more like Cooper?
That might not be well received.
Well, I thought it was interesting. I just looked down, Ed, while you were making some tremendous points there and noticed that the Cowboys rushing attack accounted for 2.1 yards per rush. Pollard, 8 rushes for 6 yards, averages 0.8. So they really weren't getting much on the ground, but they were able to generate enough yards through the air and get things done. I also thought it was interesting, Ed, there were some early issues over at left guard. Our friend McGovern returned to the lineup, and number 66 to you. And he, they just weren't getting any movement and all. And Ed, again, I kind of threw a statement out like maybe time for Peters. And I think that was on the third possession. Cowboys put him in. Boom, boom, boom. They go right down the field, and that was that CD Lamb drive. Isn't it interesting, Ed, that CD accounts for most of his yards in these last few games just on like one drive? And again, maybe that's kind of all it takes sometimes. But I bet he had 65 of what he finished with, 97 yards receiving on that one drive.
Yeah, and you mentioned the great post move that he made. The corner in that situation explained after the game he thought he had safety help, but did credit with CD with running a great route. I still don't think a lot of people should be concerned about CD Lamb's ability to be a number one receiver. That being said, they're not as good, when they don't have Amari Cooper, and that's just the fact of the matter. And Jerry made that decision for a lot of reasons. And one of the things, and he sort of took a shot, I thought, at those guys today, reiterating the point that he made at camp about why they let some of those guys go, like Lael Collins and Amari Cooper and Randy Gregory. And, you remember in training camp, he said, well, when you're making a top 10 salary on this team, you have a greater responsibility to be available. And one of the things he was saying after the game today as he assessed Cooper Rush and how they've managed to pull this off without their starting quarterback and really without a starting wide receiver, as we said, with Gallup, without a starting left guard. They didn't have Jason Peters until last week. So, they've lost a considerable amount of talent and been able to still win. And he was basically saying we have a more predictable group of personnel now that we're dealing with on a week-to-week basis. We're not wondering, if somebody's going to be sidelined by an injury or COVID. These guys are going to play hurt if they don't avoid injury. But he was suggesting that was a big part of the equation that they've mastered here.
Ed, and we sometimes post some things to YouTube. I love the walk and talk you just did.
There were some other people in the press room who were asking me how long I'm going to be running my mouth because apparently they have work to do too. And I, of all people, I hate it when I'm in a press room and I'm trying to work and other people are just talking. Now, I'm not just talking to talk like they were. Yeah. But I did think that I should probably move out of their domain for a little bit.
Okay.
And so I've relocated to the bar area, which is kind of where Jerry escapes to uses the elevator here to escape us when he's done with us.
Yeah. Put something on my tab down there while you're doing that. Well, you got some kind of car racing in the background. I love that. And also on my end, of course, I have Lakeside Roofing, one of our other just wonderful sponsors. And you can see it when I'm talking to Ed and Marable Homes and Lakeside Roofing. Just two tremendous companies, and we appreciate them so much. Lakeside Roofing is just, and there's storms obviously battering Florida right now, and our prayers go out to Florida. When we have storms hit our area, Lakeside Roofing comes in just a big, big way and has been a tremendous help. And we love having them a part of the Doomsday Podcast family.
Lights are shining, stockings have been hung. You're praying for your daughter, lighting candles for your son. They're living in the city now, you don't see them anymore. This year will not be like the ones before. And the streets are all but empty, the bars have all shut down. And it's hard to find a friend inside this godforsaken